We hope you don't have cancer, but if you do, this show's for you. The Stupid Cancer Show!
Hey guys, we're back here on the Stupid Cancer Show. Joining me on this episode is Liz Margolies from the National LGBT Cancer Network. We are old friends going back to the salad days of the survivorship movement. And I'm excited that you're dropping by to talk about, A, you're awesome. B, you're a founder.
Yes.
Which is the niche market in the cancer space. And you're doing really important work that I think just goes under the radar way too much.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
So I'll let you start by talking about your life. You're a psychotherapist by trade. How'd you get into that? Your New York City DNA inside you, and you were raised in a day and age where the fact that we could even have this type of conversation today was improbable. So
absolutely. So let me start by saying that I'm 65 years old, so I've been around for a while. That means I've woken up many mornings. And for 40 of those years, I've been a psychotherapist, which was everything I wanted to be. I mean, since I was probably 12, I knew it. But over time, I trained as a social worker, and we love a new problem. Like after 9/11, I became very involved in disaster psychology and involved in the downtown recovery movement, the mental health recovery movement. So I really am New York in every cell. As I say, it's my most enduring romantic love is with this city.
Yes.
But then in my late 40s and early 50s, some of my friends started getting cancer. Now, that's not unusual,
Right.
except that it wasn't breast cancer, which would be more common.
Right.
It was ovarian cancer. And over the course of about 5 years, I lost 4 of my favorite people on the planet.
All from ovarian cancer.
All from ovarian cancer.
Wow.
And part of me thought, like, what are the odds of this?
Yeah.
This isn't right. It's not breast cancer, which we would expect to see more of.
Right.
And I was looking for a little part-time job, and the LGBT Community Center here in New York City on 13th Street had just gotten a Komen grant to start a lesbian cancer initiative.
Wow.
And
that
I
was
said,
progressive. How many years ago was this?
2005.
Very progressive.
It was.
Yes.
And I knew nothing about it. I only knew my own personal experience.
You weren't a charity founder yet.
So no. I didn't even know what a deliverable was.
Right.
So I had to read the grant. I don't know who wrote it. And I started doing the work and looking into the cancer disparities experienced by lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender people.
What was that? Was that the core of the grant, to start doing like an exploratory understanding?
No, the grant was just to like deliver services, but I had to figure out what kind of services the community needed.
There's no recon on that at all.
No.
Yeah.
And I mean, part of the reason we know so little, even still, about LGBT cancer survivors is that a lot of information we have is through national cancer registries, like the SEER data. Every time a tumor is found, it is sent to a national registry.
Right.
So we can look at racial differences and age differences in cancer.
But not really gender differences.
Well, they don't ask questions about sexual orientation or gender identity.
Right.
So we're hidden in that data.
Right.
So we know, for example, that LGBT people use tobacco at 65% higher rates than the general population.
Wow.
But I can't actually tell you that we have even one more case of lung cancer because we're buried in the data.
Right.
So people use all kinds of creative ways to look at cancer incidence. There's much more we can find out about cancer risks. Like we know that we have increased risks. We know we have lower screening rates.
Right.
We can't prove higher incidence, but there are studies that also show extra challenges in survivorship for LGBT people. Anyway, I found this fascinating.
Right.
And the more I read, the more I cared, and I didn't understand why this program was only serving lesbians, because the problem was shared by every subpopulation in the LGBT community. And I didn't think that support groups were really the way to make a difference. I mean, how many people were we serving like that?
Right.
The way to make a difference to me was to educate the LGBT community about our increased risks and the importance of screening and early detection. And at the same time, train healthcare providers to offer more culturally competent, safe, and welcoming care,
Right.
because there's a reason that LGBT people avoid the healthcare system.
Well, today we use the term patient experience,
Yes.
which is wonky and it's like government and pharma stuff. But from my perspective and what we're trying to do here at Stupid Cancer is understand that you're just a customer of a healthcare system that you didn't ask to want to buy stuff from. So how are you treated like a customer? You know, when you go into a car dealership to buy a car, they learn who you are.
Right.
They try to figure out what car is best for you and try to sell you a car, but not apples to apples. But the individuality of the patient has never really been thought of and considered
Right.
for treatment options, psychosocial health, mental health, well-being.
Right.
And when you build a subpopulation into something already a disparity, and you decided, you know what, I need to I'm a glutton for punishment. I'm going to start a nonprofit organization.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So talk to us about that decision, because you were really riled up at the opportunity to learn that there were so many things that just weren't getting attention.
So I went to the center after a year of doing it, because I'd only promised them a year.
Okay.
And I said, I'm really interested in this, but this is not the right program.
Yeah.
We need to reach people in a much broader way, and we need to reach gay and bisexual men as well. And let's expand this.
Right.
And they said, for a variety of reasons, no. And I said, okay, but I'm going to take it, and I'm going to do it.
Right.
And everything that is this program, it's the relationships that I've built with all these other people, including you.
Mm-hmm.
So I knew nothing about starting a nonprofit, so I did what anybody does. I took my dog and I sat down in Barnes & Noble in the...
You read all the books. You read all the How to Start a Charity books.
Right.
I did too.
Right, like Nonprofits for Dummies.
Yes.
I knew nothing.
Yeah.
But I did it.
But your mission was initially what?
It's remained the same, actually.
Really?
I mean, the things we do within the mission have shifted.
Right.
And in fact, they're shifting still. But we educate the community about our increased risks, train healthcare providers to offer better care, advocate for LGBT inclusion in national cancer organizations,
Yes.
research, and the media, and offer support to survivors, because we see that LGBT survivors fare worse following cancer treatment. They report worse health, more anxiety, more fears of a recurrence. And recently, we've begun to move into thinking about LGBT caregivers.
Yes. Out of the gate, Stupid Cancer was all about the people who cared about the patient, not just the patient themselves. The caregivers are so instrumental. 1/3 of our attendees at CancerCon, which is our annual congress, and our communities at large are the caregivers. And whether
Really?
they're the boomer parents
Uh-huh.
or the 20, 30-something siblings, spouses, partners, it's so important that they're part of the conversation. And to some extent, they don't even feel like caregivers. I'm just doing what I need to do for someone I care about. I love. I'm there for them. I'm a sibling.
Right.
I'm not a caregiver, but it's my brother, and I care about that.
And what we find is that just as patients are different depending on race, ethnicity, sexual orientation, gender identity, socioeconomic status, so are caregivers.
Yes, absolutely,
And
yes.
I've recently learned, this was news to me, that LGBT people are far more likely to be a caregiver for somebody with cancer or not than the general population. 3% of the general population are caregivers, identify as unpaid informal caregivers,
Right.
and twice as many LGBT people.
That's fascinating information.
And the needs are different.
Yes. Well,
And
clearly, yes.
And what we also see with LGBT patients is that the caregiver team, the support team, tends to look different. Many LGBT people, as everybody knows, have been rejected by their family of origin. And so friends as caregivers is much more common, not to mention ex-lovers, because you know what lesbians are like, we never let each other go.
You heard it here, folks.
We all know it's true. Are much more likely to be caregivers, so that there's no legal relationship and maybe no biological relationship.
Right.
So the healthcare system has to know how to support these people and respect them as caregivers, as families of choice, as we call them in the community.
So over the last several years that you've been doing this, what would you say are like the top 3 most staggering statistics you've uncovered?
This is one of my favorite statistics, which just shows what's happened in the 10 years that I've been doing this work, that now over half of people between 13 and 26 don't identify as heterosexual.
Wow.
And that's true in this country. I think in this country it's 57%, and in the UK I think it was 49%.
Wow.
So we're kind of talking about everybody now.
Right.
It shouldn't be a little niche thing that I do. That you can't assume that anybody in front of you is heterosexual or cisgender. Cisgender is
Right.
the opposite of transgender. It means you identify with the sex you were assigned at birth.
Yes.
So you just can't assume that about anybody you see. Neither can you assume, or should anybody assume, that the person who accompanies somebody to the hospital or to outpatient treatment is a relative, even a romantic partner. LGBT people are more likely to be neighbor caregivers, that we just and take care of each other.
Right.
And we're also the one in the family most likely to care for the aging parent. So we're not just caring for our own community, but our neighbors and our family members.
Right. And I mean, yes, this country has definitely gotten more progressive in terms of respect and equality and equity and parity. But I can't imagine that is the same for certain geographical regions in the country as well.
Absolutely. And it's still true that 1 out of 5, 19% of transgender people are turned away by a healthcare provider simply because they're trans. Like maybe she came in for a cough, but the doctor's like, wait, I don't understand anything about your body. It's like, this has nothing to do with my
It's a
hormones.
cough. It's a
It's
cough.
a cough.
Yeah. There's also, I mean, we've made a very concerted effort to listen and learn from the young adult cancer community, and obviously LGBT conversations are incredibly important. So we made efforts in terms of content like this show, this very show, but we've done
Right.
many podcasts in the past identifying these issues and giving a home and a space where there's no judgments and there's no stigma. And every year at CancerCon, we've evolved and learned so much about how do we build that level of homecoming.
Right.
And this year we had a remarkable series of programs and efforts and social events, and it was just so welcoming to that point.
And you're going to have more next year.
Right.
And the thing about LGBT people is so many have experienced discrimination, starting with bullying when they were young, which leads to smoking, which leads to cancer.
Stress and anxiety and loneliness and yeah.
Right, and alcohol and drugs and many things that increase the risk for cancer. But those experiences of discrimination mean that we enter spaces that are not just queer defined spaces with wariness, right? And we're like scanning the environment, right? Is there a rainbow something? Is there a picture of 2 women or 2 men or some gender nonconforming people?
Right.
And we are so easily made to feel relaxed. It takes such a small gesture, and
Right.
you've been doing more and more of it. And my people, thank you.
My people, thank you. And my Jewish people, thank you.
Definitely. Definitely. Here's another statistic that's just
please,
one
please,
of my
yes.
favorite new studies. They looked at interviewed people in the emergency room who were LGBT and said, would you want to say what your sexual orientation and gender identity were if asked? And 70% said, absolutely, because I think to know me, you have to know who I am, even if it is a cough or a sprained pinky.
Right.
You have to know I'm going to go home with, or well, you need to know who I am, and I will feel more comfortable if I can bring my whole self in. So over 70%, I'm sorry, 90%? Oh, I don't remember. It was a lot. Now I'm
A lot.
A lot.
A lot percent.
A lot, right? A really high lot percent
Yeah.
wanted to tell, and then they asked the providers about asking their patients, and it was 90, meaning only 10% didn't want to tell.
Okay.
But 70% of the providers thought it would be intrusive to ask,
Oh my God.
and so didn't. So this is a please ask, we want to tell. And we now have it, in a peer-reviewed journal.
So that speaks to the efforts you've made. This is evidence-based information,
Yes.
really important statistical data that just had not existed. Question for you about what you like programmatically. When you go out there to educate the providers on these sensitivities and these specific issues, is there almost a generational receptivity in terms of the older nurses and social workers versus the younger nurses and social workers?
Yeah, I think it's really hard. As I say, it's easy to teach high school kids or younger because they're like empty vessels.
Yeah.
And they're like, just pour it in
Yeah.
and I'll spill it back out for the midterm or final.
Right.
But we're
exactly.
talking about adults who have thought really put a lot of thought into how they run their practices. And they're proud of it. And they don't do it blindly. They really have developed it over years. And how can we come in and say, actually, no, that's not that good what you're doing, without inducing shame in them? And if you make people feel ashamed, they shut down and they don't learn. So training people who are professionals is a big challenge, and you don't do it the same as just giving a lecture. We have to win them over, because we don't want to just I don't care if they know the difference between gender identity and sexual orientation.
Right.
They don't have to know any of my statistics about the smoking and drinking rates. What I want them to do is care and be willing to make a mistake and ask a question that they don't know the answer to.
Right.
And so the thing is, all of us have experiences of being different, right? Whether it's because we're a young person who's been diagnosed with cancer, we are an illegal immigrant in this country, we have drug addiction in our family, whatever. We all have experiences of public and private selves, and being other than the mainstream. And so we, in our trainings, tap into that with providers, encourage them through activities that we do to find the ways that they feel different and what it's like and how they wanted to share it sometimes and sometimes not. And then we use that so that they can identify more with LGBT people and care. So again, I don't care if they get it wrong. I care that they ask.
It just needs to be there.
As I say, if you step on someone's toes, it means you were willing to be that close to them.
I like that. That. I gotta say, so I want to announce here right on the show that we're going to be starting a national partnership with Liz.
Yes.
And the National LGBT Cancer
Network.
Eventually, the brain cancer will net itself out.
You're still using that excuse?
The cancer card always works.
Unfair.
Maybe not to this crowd, but at least in my mind, it's working. Because we want to really dive deeper into the awareness of this issue, the de-stig of this issue, and broaden the way we're already serving a community that we know we could very clearly do better at.
And I'm thrilled to be able to finally have a chance to really work together. And you keep doing what you do so brilliantly, and we will feed you information that you can then use or customize for the people that you serve.
So what's your website? Where can people learn more about you and the organization?
Yes, please do. We also have a Facebook page where we're posting things every few days, new research that came out. It's all like angry and rabble-rousy, but
that's what
and
people
personal,
need
right?
sometimes.
It's not dry facts. It's fuck. Oh,
you can do that.
Oh, it's fucking about time.
We're not FCC regulated.
Okay, good.
Hi, FCC.
So you can find our Facebook page. Again, it's the National LGBT Cancer Network. And our website is www.cancer-network.org.
So we'll throw those links in the comments in the sections below with all the information about Liz and her great work.
And feel free to write to me if you have any questions or comments or anything you need at liz@cancer-network.org.
And we're going to be hosting some app chats in our mobile app coming up soon, so check the calendar for that. Download our mobile app at stupidcancer.mobi, M-O-B-I, Android and iOS. And we welcome our LGBT community to join our mobile community to just be part of something really special where there are no judgments, no stigma, and no one just cares if you're craving chemo.
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
So Liz Margolies, thank you so much for stopping by the studio and sharing all that you are, all that you've done. It's remarkable.
Thanks for having me, and I hope to see you soon on the mobile app, or certainly at the next CancerCon.
Definitely at the next CancerCon. All right, folks, thanks again for joining us for another exciting episode of the Stupid Cancer Show. We'll see you back next time. Bye-bye.
Hello, friends. Do you like making young adult cancer suck less? Because I do. So if you do, be sure to click that subscribe button and the notification bell to never miss an episode of the Stupid Cancer Show. And follow us on social and all those things you crazy kids do.